Okay, I am going to try and go through and tell you about all the different language apps that I've used and other techniques I've used for learning Italian. And forgive me if the way I'm looking at the camera looks weird because I am holding a list behind my phone so that I don't have to look down. So, like many people, I started out using Duolingo and I didn't really like it. It is like an easy app to use, and that is definitely a plus. But I felt like it doesn't really have a strong focus on grammar. I don't remember it very well explaining grammar, and that was really frustrating. It also teaches you some like absolutely goofy phrases, and I do understand the approach. I think that if you're just given a bunch of language, you're going to pick up on the grammar and you're going to remember the vocabulary because you're entertained and all of that. And that's great. And I think maybe it's better when you're not in like a serious phase of learning. I will say that in contrast to that, there was one app that was recommended to me by a friend who speaks like 5 languages, and it was so like the interface was so unapproachable, and like if something can have like a corporate aesthetic, it did, and it was not intuitive to use. It looked like some kind of file organizing system. I couldn't even get into it. And so even though it was recommended as being really good, I had a really hard time getting into it. And I tried to figure out which app it was, and I could not find it. So unfortunately, I can't even tell you. Perhaps it doesn't exist anymore. I don't know how that works. After using Duolingo for a while, I switched to Busuu, and I absolutely loved it. It is just all around a good app. It is easy to use and very approachable. The lessons are engaging, and they sort of go back and forth between introducing new vocabulary and teaching grammar, and they get into really the details of grammar where they don't just show you how to phrase something, but they explain why. And I really like that. I like all of the information. They also have a thing where, I think every app tracks your progress and tells you how you're doing, sort of, to some extent. But Busuu, not only does it track your progress and tell you how you're doing, it sort of saves and makes study guides for you from the results of the work that you're doing. If there's something that you're struggling with and you're getting the answers wrong or something like that in the app, it is making a note of it. And then when you go into the area where it is, what is it called? I can't remember. But there is an area specifically where it's like, these are things you need to practice. And it's really excellent, so that you can go back and you can repeat some sections without having to repeat the entire section, just focusing on the things that are challenging for you. I think that's great. Busuu also has a thing where it matches you up with native language speakers of the language that you're learning. And what happens is that when you are doing an exercise and you're like filling in the blanks, or you're answering a prompt, those exercises are then posted so that people who speak Italian as their native language can go and make corrections to your exercises. And even nicer, they can type corrections as a message, or they can record a voice message, so they can also help you with pronunciation. There are some exercises where they ask you to record yourself speaking so that you can practice pronunciation and get feedback on that. It is really, really just a good app with a lot of different types of exercises, and I really like it. If I were to use an app again, I would use that one. Interestingly, because it is so good, at some point there was an exercise that I got to where I felt suddenly out of my depth. I didn't really understand. It was a grammar exercise that I didn't really understand. I felt like it kind of came out of nowhere and I wasn't really prepared for it. And because I felt like all of a sudden the level I was working in had jumped. One of the things that I had also realized during this time, because at the same time ish, I had been taking lots of classes and learning lots of new things. And something I had found was that when I was taking a class and there was a topic or an item that I didn't fully understand, if I ended up taking another class after that from a different teacher with perhaps a different teaching style, presenting things differently, it almost always helped me understand better and clear up whatever confusion I had. And so I started applying that to language learning as well. So I took a break from Busu at this complicated lesson that kind of stumped me, and I went and used the Rosetta Stone app, which was also highly recommended to me by the friend who speaks multiple languages. And what I have been told is it's a really great introduction. So I did the whole Rosetta Stone Italian language program. It's not that long in comparison to Busu, and Duolingo does seem to go on forever. I just don't know that it's worth going on forever with it, but Busu has really distinct levels and it really seems to go forever. It's wonderful. There's a lot of material there. So I took a break from Busu and I went and did the whole Rosetta Stone, and obviously a lot of it was really, really basic and I already knew it, and it was kind of just review, and I tried to get it all done really, really fast because the subscription is kind of expensive. But I finished the Rosetta Stone, went back to Busu, picked up again, and felt like I was okay. Like whatever it was that I needed to practice, it got solidified in my mind, and I just continued. Busu, by the way, because I mentioned that Rosetta Stone is kind of an expensive subscription. Busu, I think it's a little bit expensive, but to be honest, if you're comparing it to something like taking lessons with a teacher, which usually costs about $20 per hour, but I finished the Rosetta Stone, went back to Busu, picked up again, and felt like I was okay. Like whatever it was that I needed to practice, it got solidified in my mind, and I just continued. Busu, by the way, because I mentioned that Rosetta Stone is kind of an expensive subscription. Busu, I think it's a little bit expensive, but to be honest, if you're comparing it to something like taking lessons with a teacher, which usually costs about $20 per hour, it's not that expensive for a year. I don't remember the exact price because they always are offering a discount. And so I always paid, I want to say it was approximately $40 a year. I think I paid for it for 2 years. And right now I am still getting offers for, a discounted price. And I know from the email headers that it says like 70% off, limited time. It's going to come every day for a week, for the rest of my life, actually. So it ends up being totally affordable because you get a discount for it. So well worth it. Even if you were to pay full price, to be honest, I think that it's well worth it. After Busu, because what happened was I just kind of got burned out on apps. It's not that I ran out of lessons. It's not that I was finding it any less effective. It's that I was just having a really hard time making myself open it and do the lessons at some point because I was so tired of learning on apps. And so let me just kind of fill in real quick some other things that I did in addition to apps and in between and etc. I also follow a lot of Italian language accounts on Instagram. I follow some newspapers and magazines. I follow some regular people who do like vloggy things. And what else do I follow? I follow some just really entertaining things like horoscopes, and I follow a lot of Italian language teachers as well. One of the accounts I found on there is called My Italian Room, and They post educational content, obviously, and one of the things that they were doing for a while, which I'm not sure they still do, is they would do Coffee with Clara, which was, I think, twice a week or once a week, where one of the teachers named Clara would do a live where she was reading headlines from the newspaper from the week and then talking about the headlines and the stories and the language. And I found those really engaging. And my Italian room is also an actual online language school. And I took with them a number of different classes. Initially, I took a writing class with them, which was a bad idea because I wasn't really at the level where I could do that kind of work yet. And so I was cheating because I would think of, I knew what I wanted to say, but I didn't know this one word. And so I have to look it up. But then I knew the word and I wasn't really sure of the grammar because that has been like the biggest challenge for me. And they put the order of the words is not intuitive to me. So then I would feel like I would guess the grammar and then I would correct myself basically with Google Translate, and I couldn't help myself. After the writing class, I think is when I started taking some conversation classes with them, and that was a once a week Zoom with maximum 4 students and 1 teacher, and they have a whole set up online, and so every week the new lesson for the week is unlocked, and you go in and you either watch a video or read an article, and then you answer a bunch of questions about it and do a bunch of other types of exercises. And then when you go to the Zoom lesson, part of the lesson, initially you'll come in and she'll just kind of ask everyone some questions about the material for the week. And then eventually she will break you into 2 groups so that you have 2 people talking to each other only. And you have a conversation back and forth. She provides some prompts that are questions you can ask each other in case you get stuck. And so you 2 talk back and forth, and then the other 2 students talk back and forth. And then she has made notes while you're talking, and she will offer corrections. And she also would do something that I thought was really lovely, where she notices words that someone has used that are maybe uncommon or, whatever. And she'll be like, this is a great word. I'm so glad you used this. Does everyone know what this means? And throughout this entire lesson, she is taking notes on the screen, which are then saved for you so that you can access them anytime you want them. And they're really well organized. And it was just a really, really good class. I really enjoyed it, and definitely practicing speaking helped me a lot. So I did that for quite a while. And at some point when I didn't have time to do that class, I did one of their listening classes, which is completely self-guided, but it does have deadlines so that your assignments will have a chance to be graded by the teacher. Like, you can't just do anything whenever you want it and then think that they're going to, catch up with you whenever you feel like it. So the way that the listening classes work is that they have audio recordings, which are, there are 2 that I remember offhand. One of them was one of the teachers made a recording talking about the city that she grew up in and cities that she's lived in and her favorite cities overall. And you listen, if I recall this correctly, you listen to the recording without reading the transcript at the same time, and then you listen to the recording again while reading the transcript at the same time. And then you do the exercises that are related to the recording, some of which are simply filling in the blank of the word that you hear at the timestamp that they've given you, which is really, really useful. Overall, I like all of their lessons. I like everything that I did with them, and I do intend to have classes with them again. Other things that I have done, some things that helped me, this is a little bit more kind of early phases, but also ongoing. Duolingo, when I was doing Spanish initially, they had a podcast that you could listen to for Spanish language where someone would just be telling a story in Spanish, basically. And I don't remember the entire format of the podcast. I think it might simply have been the story in Spanish, and that's all. Unfortunately, they do not have that for Italian. So when I was using Duolingo initially, I was aware that some of the benefits of the app at that time were not available in the language I was learning. I found after that a podcast called Coffee Break Italian, which I absolutely loved. It is just a language learning podcast in general. So they do a bunch of sort of little lesson-y podcasts, but my favorite ones were, they did two series. One was, I think they called it the Coffee Break Italian magazine, and the other one was Travel Diaries. And the magazine, I want to say, was just like a story from history or something like that, or about a tradition or something. And then the Travel Diaries was also a story, but it was someone's vacation that they took. So they would tell you where they went, they would tell you what they did, all kinds of stuff. And it's just nice. It's nice to listen to someone speaking in Italian and telling you a complete story. And the way that they formatted that is that you would hear the entire story in Italian, and then the two presenters would have a conversation and explain the story in case you didn't understand it, including picking out specific words to talk about, and then they would play it for you in Italian again after they had explained the entire thing. And I really liked that. Let's see, another good one, News in Slow Italian, where you will have a transcript and a recording that gives you information about current news stories. So it's things that you're already familiar with that are happening in the world. One of the reasons that it's nice to read and listen to news is partly that you are generally familiar with what's going on, and so it's easier for you to pick up on what is happening in another language. And the other reason is that the way that people speak when they're giving you the news or writing a news story is different than the way that they speak or write when they're telling you a story from their life, or if you're reading fiction. Everything is a little bit different. So it's really good to have multiple sources. Some apps that I have found recently that I have not used very much because I am super burned out on using apps still. Super Fluent. It's a language practice app, and what it does is you can choose a theme to practice talking about. So it'll say something like, a visit to the grocery store, and you choose that one, and it knows which, you've already told it I'm a beginner or I'm intermediate or advanced, so it's practicing at your level. It'll speak and say whatever phrase and also put that on the screen so you can read it at the same time, and you will then answer it, and you will speak into your phone to answer, and it will type it onto the screen. And then if your answer is good, it'll be like, excellent, no mistakes, that grammar makes sense. And if it's not so good, it'll say things like, people are going to understand what you're trying to say, but it sounds weird, and it would be better if you said this. And so then it's like, do you want to try again? And you go, sure. And you basically repeat what it just told you was correct, and it registers that, and you go on with the conversation. I don't know all of the features on that app because I haven't been using it very much. So that's what I know for now. The other one I found recently that I really like is called LingQ. It's Ling, capital Q. I haven't used all of the features on this one either, partly because one of the features is you can watch videos, but none of the videos they're offering are appealing to me. And then there's like the better stuff is behind a paywall, and I'm like not doing it. But they do have very short stories, and very short. And each of those stories is told 3 times exactly the same way, except in a different tense. And I really, really like that because it just is like, I think that is a really brilliant way to demonstrate grammar, and it's working for me. So that one I like. Again, haven't used it that much because I'm really burned out on apps. I think those are all of the apps that are worth talking about. I also, let's see, I try to read books and watch a lot of movies and TV. The tricky part about movies and TV, which is why things like the listening themed classes were really important, is that everyone speaks differently. And in some regions, also, they're using a lot of regional dialect. So, for example, I really like the show Inspector Montalbano, which is filmed in Sicily. And I don't actually remember if it's filmed in Sicily, but it's set in Sicily. And I think it uses a lot of Sicilian dialect. It also uses plenty of Italian, but they speak so fast that good luck to you understanding what they're saying. Same with, I recently watched another more modern detective series called Vanina, and also set in Sicily, and everyone speaks so fast that I actually Googled while I was in the middle of watching it whether or not it was in Italian or Sicilian. And apparently it is Italian, but oh my God, I caught some words, but not a lot. On the other hand, there is another show that's on Netflix called Fedelta that I understand them very, very well. They speak more slowly. I recognize all of the words. I feel like it's really, really crazy to me how different it can be. And Fedelta, I believe, is set in Milan, I believe. So just it's all over the place. Listening is so important and hard. There are plenty of Italian language movies and TV shows on Netflix. There's also a really great channel called Megahertz that has not only Italian, but lots of foreign language TV and movies, but lots and lots of Italian stuff that isn't available elsewhere. And so I'll like subscribe to it for a while and watch everything I feel like watching, and then I'll maybe take a break from it. What else? Oh, reading. So one of the things that people have told me about books and movies is to read and watch things that you've already seen and read in English, and it'll be easier because you already know the story. But it's not easier to me, I don't think, because for example, in a movie, you might know the story, so you might kind of generally know what's happening, but it doesn't mean that you remember every line that someone says. I'm not that kind of movie watcher. And same with a book. You definitely remember the story if it was a book that you already read and liked, but it doesn't mean that you remember all of the words and language that was used. And so I have tried that and not found it to be necessarily accurate, but I have found a couple of other things. One thing, there are apps and there are books that give you a book in both Italian and English. They call it parallel texts. So you can read the same page in Italian and then in English, or you can look back and forth and just pick out a word. And it's kind of nice, especially when you're just starting. For me, the thing that really makes a difference is that I have to be engaged. I have to be enjoying the story. So reading just anything just because it's available to me in a certain format is not necessarily great. What has been the best is that I finally found a novel that I had never read before, that the story is engaging and it is definitely written with adults in mind. Like, it's not a children's book, because that I also like stories and lessons and things that are aimed at children, because it's very simple language. It's just not engaging to me. And so I found a novel that I like that is for grown-ups in Italian and not too heavy or complicated. And the story itself is so engaging, and I want so much to know what happens next that I just keep pushing through it. Some days are easier. Some days I feel like I don't look up anything and I'm really impressed with myself. Some days I feel like I want to look up every single word, and it's really kind of difficult, especially because I am enjoying the story and I do want to know what happens next, but going back and forth is really hard. So yeah, I would say even on the days that it's going well, reading like 4 or 5 pages it takes a really long time and it's exhausting. So, but I do think that as many things as you can incorporate to learn. It's useful. I know that a lot of people like to listen to music too. I have like a few songs in Italian that I like that are in my playlist and come up, and I do know those words much better. But I haven't gotten super into music in Italian yet, and I really like music is so special that I need to have access to it in a way that is not linked to something that is a little bit of a chore. I do feel like I have been working so hard, so long, learning so many things that a lot of my leisure activities have turned into part of my learning, and it's a little bit exhausting. So I have to save something, and music is one of those things that is just, I'm trying to preserve. I hope that some of this information is useful to you. I'm going to try to add in like some pictures of some of the apps I talked about, and hopefully they will help you as well.